Economy is behind the curtain. The white woman sitting in Naomi Bennett's first-class seat did not look up when she said it. She simply lifted her champagne glass, crossed one leg over the other, and turned toward the rain streaking the window as though Naomi were another delay she expected the airline to remove. For one sharp second, the cabin seemed to stop breathing. Naomi checked the boarding pass in her hand. Flight 417 to Chicago. First class. Seat 2A. There was no mistake. "I believe you're in my seat," Naomi said. Her voice was calm, but the edge of the paper pressed hard against her palm. The woman finally looked at her, taking in Naomi's plain navy coat, worn leather bag, and simple flats. Her expression changed from annoyance to amusement. "No," she replied. "I'm exactly where I belong." A few passengers turned their heads. One man lowered his newspaper. Across the aisle, a young girl paused the game on her tablet and watched. Naomi glanced at the seat number above the window. 2A, then she looked back at the woman. "May I see your boarding pass?" The woman gave a soft laugh. "You may call a flight attendant." She raised two fingers without looking away from Naomi. Within seconds, the lead flight attendant approached. His name tag read Daniel Mercer. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Langford?" he asked. Naomi noticed the name came easily to him. So did the smile. "This woman is confused," Victoria Langford said. "She thinks she belongs here." Daniel turned to Naomi, and the warmth vanished from his face. "Your boarding pass, please." Naomi handed it over. He studied it for less than 2 seconds. "Where did you get this?" The question landed harder than it should have. "From your airline," Naomi answered. Daniel looked again, then glanced toward the curtain separating first class from the rest of the plane. "There may have been a seating error. We can find you another place." "You haven't checked her ticket," Naomi said. Victoria's smile tightened. Daniel ignored the comment. "Ma'am, we're trying to depart on time." The engines hummed beneath the floor, low and steady. Outside, rain ran down the glass in silver lines. Naomi could feel the eyes around her. Now, some curious, some impatient, some already deciding she was the problem. She had seen that look before. It was the look people gave when they wanted peace more than truth. "Please scan both boarding passes," she said. Daniel's jaw shifted. "There's no need to make this difficult." "I'm not making it difficult." Naomi held his gaze. "I'm asking you to verify the seat." Victoria reached into her designer purse and produced a boarding pass. She held it between 2 fingers, never offering it fully. Daniel glanced at it and nodded. He did not scan it. He did not touch it. He simply handed Naomi's pass back and said, "Mrs. Langford is assigned to 2A." Naomi looked down. Her own ticket still said the same thing. 2 passengers. 1 seat. Yet only one of them had been treated like a liar. "Then scan hers," Naomi said. The young girl across the aisle quietly lifted her phone. Victoria saw it and leaned closer to Daniel. "I don't feel safe with her standing over me," she whispered, loudly enough for half the cabin to hear. Naomi had not raised her voice. She had not moved an inch. But Daniel's hand went to the radio clipped near his waist. "Ma'am," he said, "I need you to step off the aircraft." Naomi looked at Victoria's unscanned ticket, then at the phone now recording everything. Somewhere beneath the polished calm of the cabin, something had already begun to break. Daniel kept one hand near his radio as if Naomi had done something more dangerous than ask a question. "Please collect your belongings," he said. His voice was quiet now, polished for the passengers listening. "We can resolve this at the gate." Naomi did not move. "You already have both tickets in front of you," she replied. "Resolve it here." Victoria shifted deeper into the cream leather seat and lifted her chin. "I have flown with this airline for 12 years, she said. "I know exactly where I am supposed to be." Daniel gave her a reassuring nod. He gave Naomi nothing. Across the aisle, the young girl held her phone close to her chest, the camera lens pointed through the gap between her fingers. Her mother leaned toward her. "Sophie, put that away." "They only checked 1 ticket, Sophie whispered. Her voice was small, but the silence carried it forward. Daniel looked toward them. Recording crew members is not permitted during a dispute. Then there should not be a dispute, Naomi said. Daniel turned back to her. The muscles near his mouth tightened. He took Naomi's boarding pass again and walked 3 steps toward the galley terminal. Naomi watched him enter her information. The screen reflected pale blue across his face. His eyes moved once, then stopped. For a brief moment, surprise passed through them. He covered it quickly. The system is showing a duplicate assignment, he said. That happens occasionally. Then scan her pass, Naomi replied. Victoria placed a hand over her purse. I already showed it to you. You showed him a piece of paper, Naomi said. You did not let him verify it. Victoria's cheeks colored. Are you accusing me of something? I am asking for the same standard. The engines continued their steady hum below the floor. Checking. Daniel looked toward the cockpit door. Then he pressed the button on his radio. I need a gate supervisor at the front of the aircraft. Victoria leaned toward him and lowered her voice, but not enough. She has been hostile since she arrived. I feel threatened. Naomi stood exactly where she had been standing. Her hands remained visible at her sides. Daniel repeated the word hostile into the radio. Sophie's mother looked from Naomi to Victoria, then back to the unverified ticket. Outside, a baggage cart moved through the rain, its yellow light blinking against the gray morning. Inside, the first-class cabin waited. Daniel had finally requested help, but he had already told the gate who the problem was. The gate supervisor arrived carrying a tablet and wearing the careful expression of someone who had already accepted Daniel's version of events. Her name tag read Lauren Hayes. She stopped beside Naomi without greeting her. I understand you are refusing to leave the aircraft. Naomi looked at the tablet in Lauren's hands. I am refusing to surrender a seat that your system assigned to me. Lauren glanced at Daniel. He gave a small nod. Victoria remained in seat 2A, watching with the composed patience of a customer waiting for a minor inconvenience to disappear. Mrs. Langford is a valued passenger, Lauren said. We can place you in another seat and provide travel credit. Have you scanned her boarding pass? Naomi asked. Lauren paused. We are reviewing the situation. That means no. The answer was calm, but it changed the air around them. Sophie's phone continued recording from across the aisle. The number beside the live icon had climbed past 2,000. Her mother saw it and drew in a quiet breath, but she no longer told Sophie to stop. Lauren held out her hand. May I see your identification? Naomi opened her worn leather bag and removed her driver's license. She handed it over without mentioning the black corporate card tucked behind it, or the Bennett Atlantic security credential hidden in an inside pocket. Daniel had not noticed either one, and Naomi intended to keep it that way. 3 months earlier, she had sat across from her father. In his office above the airline's Atlanta Operations Center. Marcus Bennett had pointed to a stack of reports and insisted that the company's new training program was working. Complaints were down. Customer satisfaction was up. Naomi had asked him a simple question. Are people being treated better, or have they stopped believing anyone will listen? Marcus had not answered immediately. He had built the airline from 3 leased aircraft and a borrowed office, but success had placed layers of polished glass between him and the people standing at ordinary boarding gates. Naomi loved him, but she did not trust reports written by executives who never traveled without priority escorts. This morning, she had checked in under her own name, carried her own bag, and declined the special service code attached to the Bennett family account. She had not planned a test. She had only wanted one quiet flight to Chicago and a few hours alone before her mother's memorial. Yet now Lauren compared Naomi's license to the boarding pass as though searching for a flaw. The names match, Lauren admitted. Of course they do, Naomi said. Victoria sighed loudly. How long are we expected to entertain this? Lauren turned toward her. Mrs. Langford, we do need to scan your pass. Victoria opened her purse, searched slowly, then shook her head. It must have fallen out in the lounge. You showed Daniel a printed pass, Naomi said. I showed him enough. Victoria's voice sharpened. I do not owe you an explanation. No, Naomi replied. You owe the airline a valid ticket. A murmur moved through the cabin. Lauren tapped the tablet, entered Victoria's name, and frowned. Daniel leaned closer. Whatever appeared on the screen drained the confidence from both their faces. Before either could speak, Victoria rose halfway from the seat and pointed toward Naomi. She has been provoking me since she came aboard. Lauren immediately locked the tablet and turned back to Naomi. Ma'am, you need to lower your tone. Naomi had not raised it. That was the moment she understood the pattern was larger than one stolen seat. Evidence had appeared, but they still preferred the accusation. Daniel lifted his radio again. Request airport police at flight 417, he said. Passenger remains non-compliant. Naomi looked at the rain sliding down the window, then at Sophie's unwavering camera. She could have ended everything with one phone call. Instead, she closed her bag and waited to see how far they would go before the truth became more convenient than their prejudice. Airport police arrived less than 3 minutes later, but the silence that followed them into the cabin made the wait feel much longer. Officer Ryan Cole stepped through the aircraft door with another officer behind him, his dark uniform still dotted with rain from the jet bridge. Daniel moved toward him immediately. She is refusing crew instructions, he said, lowering his voice as though Naomi were not standing 6 feet away. She has also been intimidating another passenger. Ryan looked at Victoria first. She sat rigidly in seat 2A, one hand pressed against her chest, performing fear with careful precision. Then he looked at Naomi. She stood beside the aisle with her boarding pass in one hand and her mother's leather bag resting against her leg. Ma'am, I need you to come with us, Ryan said. Before I do, Naomi replied, please ask them to scan both tickets. Ryan glanced at Daniel. Has that been done? Daniel hesitated. Lauren answered instead. We have a duplicate seating issue, but she has refused every solution we offered. You offered me a smaller seat and $300, Naomi said. You did not verify who belongs in this one. Victoria let out an unsteady breath. This is exactly what I meant. She keeps challenging everyone. Sophie's phone remained aimed toward the aisle. The live audience had climbed past 8,000, and comments flashed across the screen faster than she could read them. Her mother placed a gentle hand over Sophie's wrist but did not lower the phone. Ryan stepped closer to Naomi. His voice stayed controlled. We can sort out the ticket at the gate. Right now, the crew has asked you to leave. On what basis? Naomi asked. Failure to follow instructions. An instruction does not become fair because someone repeats it. Daniel's eyes hardened. You are delaying a full aircraft. Naomi turned just enough to see the passengers behind him. Some looked irritated. Others looked uncomfortable. A gray-haired man in the second row finally spoke. She has been calm the entire time. Daniel ignored him. Victoria did not. Her gaze moved toward the men, then toward Sophie's camera. Something anxious flickered behind her expression. She leaned toward Lauren and whispered, she threatened to embarrass me if I did not move. Naomi heard every word. That never happened. That is what she said, Daniel replied. Did anyone hear me say it? Naomi asked. No one answered. The ventilation system whispered overhead. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Ryan looked toward Sophie. Are you recording this? Yes, sir, she said. From the beginning. Her voice trembled, but she did not lower the phone. She never threatened anyone. Victoria turned sharply. A child cannot understand what happened. Sophie's mother met Victoria's eyes. She understands what she heard. Ryan's attention returned to Naomi's boarding pass. May I see that? Naomi handed it to him. He studied the name, flight number, and seat assignment. This says 2A. It has said 2A every time someone checked it, Naomi replied. Ryan looked toward Victoria. I need your boarding pass too. Victoria reached into her purse and searched with deliberate slowness. She opened one pocket, then another. I told them I lost it. Lauren unlocked her tablet again. Her reservation appeared in the system earlier. Appeared where? Ryan asked. Lauren's fingers stopped above the screen. Daniel stepped between them. "Officer, the immediate issue is compliance." Naomi watched the shift happen. The evidence was moving closer, so Daniel moved the conversation away from it. Ryan seemed to notice. "No," he said. "The immediate issue is whether the wrong passenger was asked to leave." For the first time, Daniel had no prepared response. Then Victoria stood and pointed toward Naomi's bag. "She could have taken my printed ticket while I was in the lounge." The accusation fell into the cabin like a glass dropped on marble. Naomi felt every face turn toward her. Ryan looked at the bag. Near her feet. Daniel reached for his radio again. "We may need security to inspect her belongings." Naomi placed one hand on the worn leather handle. Her mother had carried that bag through 20 years of airports without allowing anyone to make her feel small. Naomi looked directly at Ryan. "You may inspect it," she said. "But first, make her show you what is in her purse." Ryan did not reach for Naomi's bag. Instead, he turned toward Victoria. "Ma'am, place your purse on the empty seat across the aisle." Victoria stared at him as if the request itself were an insult. "You cannot be serious." "You accused another passenger of taking your boarding pass," Ryan said. "We need to verify that claim." Daniel shifted beside him. "Officer, perhaps we should handle this privately at the gate." Ryan kept his eyes on Victoria. That option was available before an accusation of theft was made. The cabin fell quiet again. Victoria slowly placed her purse on the seat, but her hand remained wrapped around one handle. "This is humiliating," she whispered. Naomi felt the words settle between them. Humiliating. As though humiliation had only entered the cabin when it reached Victoria. Ryan asked Lauren to witness the inspection. Lauren stepped forward with her tablet pressed against her uniform. Victoria opened the purse herself and removed a wallet, a makeup case, a pair of sunglasses, and a folded magazine. Then she stopped. "That is everything." Ryan looked inside without touching anything. "There is a side pocket." Victoria's face tightened. "It contains personal documents." "Including a boarding pass?" Ryan asked. Daniel lifted his radio. "We are now 15 minutes behind schedule." "Then the truth is already overdue," Naomi said. Victoria pulled open the side pocket and removed a folded sheet of paper. She tried to cover it with her palm, but Ryan saw the airline logo along the top. "Hand it to me, please. This is not the pass I used today." "Then it should clear this up quickly." Victoria gave him the paper. Ryan unfolded it. His gaze moved across the printed details, then paused. "Seat 14C, he read aloud. A murmur passed through first class. Sophie's phone captured every sound. Victoria shook her head immediately. "That was my original seat. I was upgraded at the lounge." Lauren began typing on her tablet. "I do not see a completed upgrade. Your system must be delayed." "The aircraft door has been open for 22 minutes, Lauren said. "The system is current." Daniel leaned toward her screen. "There could be a manual override." Naomi watched him search for another explanation, any explanation that would keep Victoria innocent and Naomi difficult. Ryan held up the printed pass. "Where is the document showing the upgrade to 2A? Victoria pointed toward Naomi. She took it. Sophie spoke before anyone else could. No, she did not. Her mother placed an arm around her shoulders. The woman in the seat had a different paper when Naomi arrived. "I saw it too." The gray-haired passenger nodded. "So did I." Another voice rose from the row behind them. She folded it and put it in her purse before the flight attendant came. Victoria looked around the cabin, suddenly surrounded not by supporters, but by witnesses. "They are confused," she said. "Everyone is tired." Ryan handed the pass to Lauren. "Pull the seat history." Lauren entered several commands. The screen illuminated her face with a cold blue glow. "Seat 2A has been assigned to Naomi Bennett since purchase," she said. "No changes. No duplicate ticket." Daniel stared at the tablet. "Then why did her pass appear valid?" Lauren scrolled lower. "It did not." You never scanned it. The sentence landed cleanly. No raised voice. No drama. Just fact. Daniel looked toward Naomi, but he did not apologize. He turned instead to Ryan. She still refused a crew instruction. Ryan's expression hardened. An instruction based on false information. Daniel stepped closer. The captain has authority to remove any passenger who disrupts boarding. I did not disrupt boarding, Naomi said. You stopped boarding to protect someone who lied. Victoria reached for her purse. Ryan stopped her with a firm gesture. Please leave everything where it is. Then Daniel spoke into his radio, his voice sharper than before. Captain, the passenger is continuing to challenge crew authority. We need authorization for removal. Naomi heard the cockpit respond through a burst of static. Authorization granted. Ryan looked at her with visible hesitation. Ma'am, I still need you to step off the aircraft while we complete the report. And if I refuse? Naomi asked. Ryan's hand moved toward the silver restraints on his belt. The metal caught the cabin light. Please do not make me take further action. Naomi looked at the valid ticket in Lauren's hand, the false accusation now exposed, and the seat that still had not been returned to her. Then she placed her mother's bag carefully on the floor and held her hands where everyone could see them. Why must my innocence wait until after my humiliation? No one answered. Behind Sophie's camera, the live audience passed 40,000. Somewhere inside Bennett Atlantic's operations center, an employee finally recognized the woman standing in the aisle. Ryan did not move. His hand remained near the restraints, but the certainty had left his face. Around him, the cabin seemed to shrink into a single suspended moment. The engines hummed beneath the floor. Rain traced narrow silver paths across the window beside seat 2A. Naomi lowered her eyes to the worn leather bag resting near her shoes. A small corner of a photograph had slipped from the inside pocket. She bent slowly, picked it up, and held it between her fingers. In the picture, her mother stood beside a narrow white airplane on a sunlit runway, one hand resting against the fuselage, her smile bright beneath the old Bennett Atlantic emblem. The photograph had been taken 28 years earlier, when the airline owned 3 aircraft and operated from a rented office near Atlanta. Her mother had helped choose the cabin colors. She had answered customer calls after midnight. She had carried that same leather bag through terminals where strangers sometimes mistook her for cleaning staff, even while she was negotiating contracts that kept the young company alive. Naomi remembered sitting beside her hospital bed during the final winter. Her mother had spoken softly because breathing had become difficult. A company shows its character when it thinks nobody important is watching. Naomi had promised that she would remember. Now 40,000 people were watching, but nobody in the cabin knew what the photograph meant. Nobody knew why Naomi had declined the family travel code that morning. Nobody knew she could have called Marcus Bennett and ended the confrontation before Daniel finished his first sentence. She had wanted a quiet flight to Chicago. She had wanted to carry her mother's bag, sit by the window, and arrive without ceremony. Instead, she was standing beneath cold cabin lights while a valid ticket rested in another person's hand and an officer considered removing her from the seat she had purchased. Ryan looked at the photograph. "Is that your mother?" he asked. Naomi nodded once. She believed this airline could be better than the world around it. Daniel glanced toward the cockpit, impatient with the pause. "Officer, we have authorization." Ryan did not answer him. Sophie's phone remained steady across the aisle. Her mother held her shoulder, and the gray-haired passenger watched without blinking. Victoria sat silently now, her earlier confidence replaced by a rigid stillness. Lauren studied the tablet again, scrolling through the reservation record as though another line might explain what everyone had already seen. Naomi placed the photograph carefully on top of her bag. Then she extended her hands in front of her, palms open. "I will not resist," she said. "But every person here will remember why you removed me." The soft metallic sound from Ryan's belt seemed impossibly loud. He took one step forward, then stopped. From behind the cockpit door came the ring of a secure telephone. Once. Twice. 3 times. The captain did not answer immediately. Daniel looked toward the door. Lauren's tablet vibrated in her hands. A red priority message appeared across the screen, followed by Naomi's full name and a security classification Lauren had never seen on an ordinary passenger record. Her face lost its color. At the same moment, nearly 800 miles away, inside Bennett Atlantic's operations center, a supervisor rushed into the executive communications room carrying a phone that displayed Sophie's live stream. Marcus Bennett stood at the window overlooking the rain-covered runway. He turned when he saw his daughter holding out her hands. Back inside Flight 417, the secure telephone rang again. This time, the cockpit door opened. The captain stepped into the cabin holding the secure telephone against his chest. His face was pale, and the authority in his posture had changed into something heavier. "Nobody moves," he said. Daniel lowered his radio. Ryan's hand fell away from the restraints. Lauren stared at the red message on her tablet, then looked at Naomi as though seeing her for the first time. The captain crossed the narrow aisle and stopped beside her. "Ms. Bennett," he said carefully, "the operations center has confirmed your identity." Victoria's fingers tightened around the armrest. Daniel blinked. "Identity?" The captain looked directly at him. "Naomi Bennett is the daughter of Marcus Bennett, founder and majority owner of this airline." The words traveled through first class without anyone repeating them. Sophie's phone remained lifted, but even the stream of comments seemed distant beneath the sudden silence. Victoria turned toward Naomi, searching her face for some sign that this was a trick. "That is impossible," she said. She would have said something. Naomi lowered her hands. "You never asked who I was," she replied. "You decided who I was." Lauren looked back at the reservation screen. The unfamiliar security classification now made sense. It had been designed to protect the Bennett family without displaying their status to ordinary employees. Daniel took one step back. "Ms. Bennett, I had no idea." Naomi looked at the valid boarding pass still resting in Lauren's hand. "That was never the information you needed." Ryan exhaled slowly. His expression held no relief, only discomfort. He had almost removed a passenger whose innocence was already visible in the evidence. The captain raised the telephone. "Mr. Bennett is on the line." Naomi did not reach for it. "Not yet." Her voice remained calm. "We are not finished verifying what happened." The captain hesitated, then nodded. Lauren reopened the seat history and expanded Victoria's reservation. A sequence of time stamps appeared. Original assignment, 14C. Upgrade request denied. Lounge inquiry closed. No reassignment to first class. Then another record surfaced, a document image uploaded 26 minutes before boarding. Lauren enlarged it. The screen showed a photograph of an older boarding pass with the seat number altered. The edges of the number did not align with the printed text. Victoria's face went still. "That is not mine." Sophie spoke from across the aisle. "It is the same one you showed him." Her mother nodded. "I saw the crease in the corner." The gray-haired passenger leaned forward. "So did I." Ryan turned to Victoria. "Did you alter this document?" "No. Did anyone authorize you to occupy 2A? I was told there might be an upgrade." "That was not my question." Victoria looked toward Daniel, but he no longer met her eyes. Lauren opened the cabin camera archive. The recording showed Victoria entering first class, checking the seat marker, hiding her 14C pass inside her purse, then placing the altered paper on her lap. It also showed Naomi approaching calmly. No threat. No raised voice. No aggressive movement. Only a request for her assigned seat. Ryan watched the footage twice. When it ended, he removed his hand from his belt completely. "Ms. Bennett," he said, "you were truthful from the beginning." Naomi looked at him. "The camera did not make me truthful. It only made the truth harder to ignore." Daniel's shoulders lowered. "I am sorry." "For what?" Naomi asked. He opened his mouth, but no answer came. The captain finally placed the secure phone on speaker. Marcus Bennett's voice filled the cabin, low and controlled. "Naomi, are you safe?" She looked at Victoria, Daniel, Lauren, and Ryan. Then she looked at the passengers who had watched a seat dispute become an accusation become a removal order, and a removal order nearly become something permanent. "I am safe now," she said. "But that is not the same as being treated fairly." Marcus Bennett's voice remained steady through the speaker, but Naomi could hear the anger beneath it. "Captain, suspend every employee involved until I arrive." Daniel's face tightened. Lauren lowered her eyes. Ryan stood motionless beside the aisle. Naomi looked at the secure telephone and shook her head. "No," the single word stopped everyone. Marcus paused. "Naomi. Firing them today will make the company feel clean tomorrow," she said. "It will not explain why this happened." Daniel looked up slowly. Victoria remained seated in 2A, her purse open across the opposite seat, the false pass lying beside it like a confession nobody could fold away. Marcus spoke again. "They knew your ticket was valid." "Yes." Naomi turned toward Daniel. "They saw the evidence and still treated my presence as the problem." Daniel's voice came quietly. "I made the wrong decision." "You made several decisions," Naomi replied. "You believed her before checking. You described me as hostile when I stayed calm. You called the police after the truth was already on your screen." He swallowed. "I was trying to avoid a delay. You chose the easiest person to move." The words were not loud, but they carried through the cabin. Lauren pressed the tablet against her chest. "I should have reviewed the full reservation history before I approached you." Naomi faced her. "You should have approached both passengers with the same doubt." Ryan stepped forward. "I should have verified the facts before asking you to leave." Naomi studied him for a moment. "You had a uniform, a report, and a calm woman standing in front of you. Which one did you trust first?" Ryan had no answer. Marcus's breathing sounded through the phone. "Tell me what you want done." Naomi looked toward Sophie. The girl still held the phone, although the number watching had grown beyond anything she could count. Her mother stood beside her now, one hand resting on the back of the seat. Naomi looked at the passengers who had spoken only after the accusation became impossible to defend. Then she looked at Victoria. "Mrs. Langford must leave the aircraft," Naomi said. Victoria rose quickly. "You cannot remove me because of one misunderstanding." Ryan picked up the printed pass from seat 14C. "This was not a misunderstanding." Victoria's expression turned toward Naomi. "I did not know who you were." Naomi felt the cabin lean into the sentence. That was the apology Victoria believed mattered. Naomi answered without anger. "That is the problem. You thought respect required knowing." Victoria opened her mouth, but Ryan asked her to collect her belongings. This time, no one argued about delaying the flight. She gathered her purse and coat under the eyes of the same passengers who had watched Naomi stand alone. Before stepping into the jet bridge, Victoria turned back. Naomi did not smile. She did not look triumphant. She simply held her valid ticket at her side. When Victoria disappeared, Marcus spoke again. "What happens to the crew?" Naomi picked up her mother's photograph and placed it carefully inside the leather bag. "Preserve every recording. Bring in an independent review team. Examine every removal request from the last 5 years. Find out how often the word aggressive was used before evidence was checked." Daniel looked at her. "And us. You will not disappear behind a resignation letter," Naomi said. "You will explain every choice you made, in order, without excuses. Then you will help rewrite the process that allowed those choices." Daniel nodded, his shame visible now without performance. Naomi continued. "No police call before both tickets are verified. No report based on one passenger's statement without asking witnesses. No compensation offer that quietly moves the person who was wronged. Every employee will learn that de-escalation does not mean protecting comfort at the expense of truth." Marcus was silent for several seconds. "Approved." Naomi looked at Ryan. "Your department should review the response too." He nodded. "I will request it myself." Sophie finally lowered her phone. The cabin seemed larger without the camera raised between them. Naomi walked toward seat 2A, but she did not sit. She looked at Daniel instead. Bring me the names of every passenger removed under similar circumstances. He met her eyes. I will. Naomi touched the worn handle of her mother's bag. Good. Because this cannot end with an apology made only to someone powerful. 6 weeks later, Naomi returned to Gate 27 beneath a clear Atlanta morning. The storm had passed, but its consequences remained. Bennett Atlantic had completed an independent review of more than 400 passenger removal reports from the previous 5 years. 37 cases had been reopened. 11 passengers received formal apologies and full reimbursements. Several reports had used words such as aggressive, threatening, and uncooperative without supporting evidence. The company replaced its complaint process, required equal verification of disputed tickets, and prohibited employees from requesting police assistance until available records and witness statements had been reviewed. The changes did not erase what had happened, but they made it harder for the same injustice to hide behind procedure. Naomi boarded Flight 417 carrying her mother's leather bag. This time, no executive escort walked beside her. Daniel stood at the aircraft door in a plain navy suit instead of his flight attendant uniform. He had been removed from passenger service during the review, but Naomi had asked that he join the reform team rather than quietly resign. In his hands was a thin report. The first monthly review, he said. Naomi accepted it. What did you learn? Daniel looked toward the boarding line before answering. That I confused keeping people comfortable with keeping them safe. His voice was steady, but regret remained behind it. I listened to the person who looked familiar and managed the person who did not. I called that judgment. Naomi held his gaze. What do you call it now? Bias. He did not decorate the word or soften it. Naomi nodded once. Then the work has started. Inside the cabin, Sophie sat with her mother in the second row. When she saw Naomi, her face brightened. The live stream had been viewed millions of times, but Sophie had refused every interview that tried to turn her into the hero. She always gave the same answer. I only recorded what everyone else could see. Naomi stopped beside her. Would you like the window for takeoff? Sophie looked toward seat 2A. Really? For a few minutes. Sophie slid into the seat and pressed her face near the glass as sunlight spread across the runway. Naomi sat beside her and placed her mother's photograph on the small table. In the picture, Evelyn Bennett stood beside the airline's first airplane, smiling as though she could already see the company it might become. Marcus had later admitted that his reports had shown numbers, not character. He had built an airline large enough to cross the country, but his daughter had reminded him that progress meant little if dignity could still be denied within a few feet of the front door. As the aircraft began to move, Sophie looked at Naomi. Did you forgive them? Naomi watched the terminal drift past the window. Forgiveness does not mean pretending nothing happened, she said. It means choosing change over revenge while still demanding accountability. The airplane lifted through the morning light. Below them, highways narrowed into silver threads and the city softened beneath the clouds. Sophie returned to her own seat before the seatbelt sign went off. Naomi remained by the window with the photograph resting beside her hand. No one applauded. No announcement described what had changed. Daniel simply opened his copy of the report near the galley and began reading it again. Justice did not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it appeared in a corrected record, a rewritten rule, or a person finally willing to name the prejudice inside an ordinary decision. Naomi looked across the bright wing where the Bennett Atlantic name reflected the sun. Her mother had been right. Dignity belonged to a person before anyone recognized the name attached to it. The real test was never how people treated Naomi after learning who her father was. It was how they had treated her when they believed she was alone. And as the aircraft climbed above the clouds, one question remained for everyone who had watched: would they have spoken up before discovering that the woman in the aisle had power?